Have you ever wanted to make a change, a major change in your life, but didn't have the guts to go through with it? It's easier than you think, and recently Catherine sat down with award-winning author John St. Augustine, who also happens to work for Oprah Winfrey. They talk about this new inspirational book, Living an Uncommon Life. Take a look.
He's going to tell you his story in just a minute, but let me go straight to the punchline. Charles Osgood, a favorite of so many on radio and now television, has called you the new voice of America.
Pretty neat, huh?
That's pretty neat.
You know, Charlie and I were doing a show many years ago, and it was really not so much about my physical voice, but it was about the content that we cover.
Absolutely.
And how that really is what America's all about. I really find things that are negative and downtrodden very anti-American, because this is a very optimistic country, so I think that's what Charlie was alluding to.
Yeah, but in the television biz, the old if it bleeds, it leads. We hear about networks that try and do good news, they fail miserably. How have you succeeded bringing this kind of message to people?
Well, you know, radio is a whole different ballgame for me, because I think, as you know, that using your voice in a way that uplifts people can really make a difference. And I think people are starving to death for this stuff. And I think it's all how you deliver it. It's not just namby-pamby or pie in the sky. It has to have some real guts to it. And it's not a make these stories up or just talk about how we got a cat out of a tree. I talk about people whose lives have been changed and how they've overcome. And I know that if one person can do it, we can all do it. And it's all in the delivery. We still have fun. We still inform. We inspire and entertain. And been doing it for over 10 years.
Well, you've had thousands of interviews.
Thousands.
Everyone from the biggest celebrities to the great stories that you never hear about. You've consolidated them in a book. Are there really 21 steps that can take all of us to a much better place?
I think there's about 21 million.
Yeah.
But that's too long a book. I think that whatever works for you is where you find it. And I don't think there's one way to get to Mecca. I think there's a lot of roads. I think we have to find our own way there. But these are just people who live by great example and can show us the way a little bit. They didn't invent the concepts in the book, but they live them at such a high level that they illustrate and illuminate them, and they make it easier for us to find our way.
Give us a couple, some that seem very simple, but the implementation can produce
the business that you and I are in, our voice. I mean, how we use our voice and don't use our voice, especially during political times or other times of challenge in our life. Using our voice, this amazing thing, as Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said, the organ of the soul is the human voice. And to use that voice in something that is much larger than us moves that thing literally and physically in a new direction. So my late friend John Denver was such an influence on my life, how he used his voice around the world. And it wasn't whether or not you agree or disagree with him, but that he applied his life to something and his voice to something. And I think we have forgotten to do that. We're so used to, especially in the media and especially in talk radio, listening to people who know everything about everything but haven't done a whole lot of anything.
Yeah.
And that scares me.
What do you think, though, in a time that I would describe as very violent, very aggressive, very negative, very nasty, people that say, oh, take a softer approach or a diplomatic approach, have a conversation, are consideed wimps?
Yeah, well, I always say to those folks, how's that working for you? I mean, we keep it this course, how's that working for you? It's not. And I can't, Catherine, I can't get my mind around the fact that this is as good as it gets for human beings. You know, I watch you every night, I watch all these shows, and I know underlying all this is you're trying to wake people up and say, hey, come on, we could do better than this. We don't have to act this way. And I think most people feel that way, just don't know how, or they forgot. We're too busy, we're too diverted, there's too many diversions in our lives. And when you get down to the basics, you know, I've never gone to a funeral and walked through a cemetery and saw a Democrat or Republican on a headstone. Yeah. So if it's not that important then, why do we make it such a dividing factor now? So my shows and the book is really all about the common things that we all have that we just forget to really live on.
But you're not just preaching because you've lived this story. You sort of tell us about living in a motel room with your family, working your way up, not having any sense that you would have anything in your life, much less a success.
Right. Well, you know, we all have choices to make in our lives, and I've made some that have been, let's say, interesting. And I think that leads you to interesting places, you know, and I think that you have to, what you fear the most, you have to handle the most. Otherwise, it just keeps coming. So for me, I chose the road less traveled. I kind of like it there, and I found that even when you get to the edge, you can move the edge just a little bit more. And I think that we're only here for a short time. If we're really lucky, we get just over 28,000 days. If we're really lucky, that's it.
So short.
Well, yeah, it is. And some of us get a lot less, and some will get a little bit more. I don't know why. But really, this book, what I do, what you do, what we all do in the media, hopefully those of us that are somewhat conscious and awake, is to say, you may not wake up tomorrow. It happens every day. Why not wake up today? Why not live your life at a whole nother level and find things within yourself that you forgot just because they got knocked out of the challenges? I've walked it. I literally walked it from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to Chicago and back on foot, and I found myself. And I don't suggest everybody do that because it's a long haul, but we all have our walks to take, and if we don't, life gets pretty tough.
Well, I happen to endorse, wrote the foreword
Yes,
on
you
your book,
did. I'm
and
so happy.
endorse very much what
Yeah.
you write, and you write it so beautifully, Living an Uncommon Life, Essential Lessons from 21 Extraordinary People. And here's one right here.
Thank
John
you very
St.
much.
Augustine, thank
Same
you
to
very
you,
much.
man.